They say America is a melting pot, but not everyone wants to stay in the kitchen when the seasoning changes. For decades, white Americans built entire neighborhoods, townships, and urban centers, shaping the economic foundation of these cities. But the moment the racial demographics started to shift, when black families moved in en masse, seeking better schools, safer neighborhoods, and generational opportunities, the atmosphere suddenly changed. Realtors stopped smiling, neighborhood associations got quiet. The for sale signs sprouted like weeds. White flight isn't just a myth, it's a recurring pattern. And in some cities, it wasn't just a trickle, it was a stampede. These aren't your usual suspects. We're not talking about Detroit or Baltimore. These are cities that once held firm to the idea of whiteness as a cultural stronghold, only to vanish into the background once the black population passed that invisible 90% threshold. Let's talk about the cities that white America quietly, quickly, and, some might say, shamelessly fled once the black community took root and refused to leave. 1. East Cleveland, Ohio. Once the proud home of Eastern European immigrant families, East Cleveland was a stronghold of white working-class pride throughout the 1950s and 60s. But by the 1980s, as black families began to purchase homes, something eerie happened. White residents didn't just leave, they left behind everything. Churches emptied. Schools shut down. The city is now over 90% black, and the flight was so abrupt, some homes were literally left with furniture still inside. 2. Gary, Indiana. The steel mills built Gary, and white America ran them. But when black laborers began climbing the ranks and moving their families into the city's core, the decline was swift. The city didn't just become black, it became symbolic of black political power. Once the population tipped past 90% black in the late 1980s, Gary transformed from a bustling industrial town into what outsiders called the Black Detroit, a label that made white residents even more eager to vanish. 3. Camden, New Jersey. Situated just across from Philadelphia, Camden was once a white working-class paradise. But as black families migrated from Philly in the 1970s, white residents took one look at the rising property taxes, declining investment, and growing diversity, and decided it was time to go. By the time the 2000s rolled around, Camden was over 90% non-white, with black residents making up the majority. It became a national talking point not for its culture, but for the fear it sparked in suburban white America. 4. Inkster, Michigan, just outside of Detroit. Inkster once advertised itself as a quiet white suburb, but its location made it an easy landing spot for black factory workers who couldn't buy homes in nearby Dearborn due to segregationist policies. Once black families arrived in the 60s, the neighborhood associations started disbanding, and the white neighbors ran for the hills. Inkster is now over 90% black, and you'll be hard-pressed to find a trace of its vanilla past. 5. Dalton, Illinois. Right outside Chicago sits Dalton, a suburb that became one of the fastest shifting racial towns in Illinois. In the 1990s, white families still dominated, but the moment black professionals started moving in, school boards, banks, and even grocery stores saw a turnover. White residents didn't just leave Dalton, they took their tax dollars with them. Today, it's over 95% black, and no one's holding the door open for their return. Six. Muskegon Heights, Michigan. Originally a blue-collar white city with strong ties to Michigan's auto industry, Muskegon Heights began to change in the 1970s as black families, displaced by discriminatory housing laws, found a home here. When the black population crossed the 60% mark, white residents began leaving en masse. Now the city is over 90% black, and the white population is so scarce it's practically invisible. 7. Jennings, Missouri. Nestled next to Ferguson, Jennings has seen its fair share of racial tension. But before that, it was a sleepy, majority-white community. The real estate shift happened fast. As more black families began to seek affordable homes in the 1990s, white homeowners listed properties at record speed. The exodus was so swift, the schools couldn't keep up. Today, Jennings is over 90% black, and still recovering from the scars of abrupt abandonment. 8. Flint, Michigan, North Side. We often hear about Flint's water crisis, but not enough is said about the demographic flip that preceded it. The north side of Flint, in particular, experienced a rapid racial shift. White residents, terrified by rising black homeownership, fled so quickly that entire blocks turned over in under a decade. Now it's not just 90% black, it's also 90% forgotten. 9. Riviera Beach, Florida. This sunny coastal town used to be a white retiree's dream. That is, until affluent black families started buying waterfront properties and turning the area into a vibrant, black-led beach town. The transformation wasn't subtle. Country clubs closed. Condo associations changed bylaws. And just like that, white residents vanished like sand in the tide. Today, Riviera Beach is over 95% black and thriving without them. 10. Vicksburg, Mississippi. Yes, the heart of the South. Vicksburg was once a segregated, white-dominated town clinging tightly to its Confederate past. But over time, as younger white residents moved away and black residents remained rooted, something astonishing happened. Black culture flourished. White residents didn't just leave physically, they checked out politically, economically, and socially. The city is now nearly 94% black, and yet no one wants to talk about how or why that happened. White America didn't just leave these cities, they abandoned them. And while their absence was often followed by disinvestment, neglect, and political sabotage, black communities still found ways to rise, rebuild, and reclaim. Because when the dust settles and the moving trucks are gone, what's left is a community that didn't run. A community that stayed, survived, and made something out of the ashes. Legal disclaimer. This essay is a commentary piece intended for historical and cultural analysis. The events described are drawn from population trends and public records, and may include satirical or dramatized elements for storytelling purposes. The goal is to provoke thought, not to incite division or encourage racial generalizations.